Welcome to the Meat and Potatoes podcast. Today we're here with Deneece Huftalin, who is the president of Salt Lake Community College. How are you?
I'm doing okay. How are you?
I am very good, thank you. It's always a pleasure.
Thanks.
And you've been on stage, and we've done a few podcasts in the past, so it's always great. We've got some fun stuff to talk about. We're going to talk about a little bit of a rebrand.
Yeah.
Salt Lake Tech.
Salt Lake Tech.
Tell us about
So
that.
who knew, right? So it's only since 1948 have we been actually doing technical education training. But somehow over the years, that focus got a little bit buried within the Salt Lake Community College brand. And so as you've seen workforce, this is not a new phenomenon, but the last 3 years we know even more and more workforce craziness and needs. We realized we've got to rebrand. We've got to let people in the Salt Lake County area know that Salt Lake Technical College exists. It always had. So we're rebranding. It's mostly our short-term, non-credit or technical credit, I should say, programs. We've always had them, but we're just trying to elevate that exposure and help people in Salt Lake County say, oh, I can just go right up the street and do a short-term, high-demand training program and get on my way. So, yeah, we're excited about Salt Lake Tech.
Yeah. So it's always been there.
Yes.
And there are other ways that you can learn these technical skills, right?
Yes.
But you mentioned it kind of got buried in all the other stuff that the community college does. So what are some of these, programs that you just mentioned?
Yeah, so we've always had these programs, as I said, but they were kind of in one of our schools. And when you look at Mountainland Tech or Davis Tech or Ogden Weber Tech, that's a whole college, and I'm quoting for the listeners, air quotes, that students saw and could go to. We had them in a school, but it's things like truck driving, composites, electronics, welding, all of these things that have never gone away from our curriculum, but have been kind of buried in a school. And the difference in terms of affordability and acceleration and length of time wasn't really being highlighted. So I don't know, maybe 2 years ago, the legislature started talking to the Board of Regents about consolidating all the tech colleges and the degree granting institutions, which has happened. Mm-hmm. And we actually do both. So we're kind of, unlike most of our degree granting sisters, we have both the tech college and a degree granting institution in one. And so that merger really said to us, what can we take advantage of? And we just elevated, there's about 12 programs that we're elevating to help people see that they're short term, they're cheaper, there's more flexibility, et cetera. So that's what they can access.
Very cool.
Yeah.
And it sounds like it's a lot more flexible and easier than perhaps when I went to school to possibly transfer credits.
Yes.
To figure out, I still would like to learn a little bit about the humanities.
Right.
But at the end of the day, I'd like to be in information systems or a welder.
Right. So what's cool about Salt Lake Tech and any of the technical colleges is you can start with the technical skill. And especially for, I would say, lower to middle income families or folks who are really underemployed, they don't have a lot of luxury in terms of time and money. And so the idea there is come and get that really technical skill and get it within 6 months or 12 months. And then go out into the workforce and raise your income level and stabilize your family. And then when you're working there and you see that work ethic and they see that skill, if you want to come back and do English and do maybe a psych class or political science and round out your communication skills, your critical thinking skills, now you're going to be set up to move into management perhaps or supervision or leadership. But you don't have to do the whole thing at once. Let's chunk it up. Let's do it at night so you can work during the day, come at night. Let's do it in a way that you can accelerate the pace and you don't have to sit there for 16 weeks if you've already learned something. Yeah. So a whole different way of accessing college. Our technical colleges have all been doing that forever. We've actually been doing it forever, but we're just trying to help people understand that opportunity a little bit more with Salt Lake Tech branding.
Yeah. So you already answered a few of these, but the next question was going to be, why would a student want to attend Salt Lake Tech or the Salt Lake Community College?
Well, I think we're trying to, one of the things about our mission, and this is kind of a double-edged sword, is some people say we're trying to be everything to everyone, and we need a more focused mission. And the reality is community colleges were created to be kind of the democratizing of higher education, right? So we have a lower tuition level. We have much more flexibility in terms of when you can come to college. And now with Salt Lake Tech and with our technical credit programs, we're saying to students, if you have to work during the day, and many people still have to work 1, 2, 3 jobs, right, just to make ends meet. The idea of going away to college or going and being a full-time student is just, it's not even on their radar.
Yeah.
So how do we fit in? And so I think why a student would choose Salt Lake Tech is because they've got other obligations in their life. They know they want to do better in terms of financial stability and upward mobility, but they're trying to figure out, how do I do that across all these other obligations I have? So that's why I say technical credit, you can accelerate at your own pace. It's subsidized at a higher level from the legislature, so it's much more affordable than other college options. And it's quicker, right? Most of the programs are shorter. So you're choosing that because you've got limitations in terms of time and money. But you know you've got to do, you want to do better, or you have passions or desires or just social mobility goals that you want to meet. So that's the Salt Lake Tech piece. That's what I would say there. Salt Lake Community College, the degree granting institution, you know, that can still be very workforce directed. I want to be a nurse, or I want to be a electronics engineer. But you could also say, I want to be a doctor. So I'm going to come do my 2 years and get my generals out of the way and do pre-health science. And then I'm going to move on and get my biology degree. And then I'm going to go to medical school. And I'm going to do that at Salt Lake Community College because it's less money. Again, it's probably more flexible than some of the universities in terms of when we offer classes. And for many of our students, they will tell you that even though we're big, we feel small.
Yeah.
And higher ed people and the traditions can be very elitist, and they can be very intimidating.
Yeah.
And for first generation kids, or even just shy students or students that don't think they're very academically pulled together or have been told that by folks, even though they are,
Yeah.
we create a space where I think they can suddenly find their academic chops and kind of get some confidence.
Yeah.
And then they can move on. And so it's a good place for folks that are a little intimidated to start.
Absolutely. I did attend Salt Lake Community College.
He's wearing his, for the listeners, he's wearing his SLCC baseball jersey.
Yeah.
So we appreciate that.
You guys have good colors.
Go Bruins.
Some
yeah.
colleges don't. You guys do.
I went to UCLA, so those colors, the Bruins, the whole thing, it's just living with me my whole life.
Yeah, and it was interesting because you could clearly tell like first generation students in the classroom, or they were just dumpster fires in high school.
Yep.
This was all new to them. But then there's also some blue bloods their parents were like, yeah, you can go anywhere you want. Why don't we be smart and you go to the community college? So it was a really fun mix. Also, I have 2 friends who are doctors that went to Salt Lake Community College for 2 years.
I love that. And then went on to med school.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, yep. That value proposition for some families, because I talk a lot about our first generation, our lower income students, and I love that mission. But what people often don't hear is what you just said is people are just coming because of the value. They could go anywhere.
Yeah. And
we have an honors program now. We opened an honors program probably 3 years ago that it actually transfers directly into the honors program at the U. And that's been a goal of mine since I became president, because I want to show everyone we're not just for students that can't do college or have some societal barriers that they're trying to overcome. We're also for people who are really, really smart but just want to save some money and want to be in a smaller classroom, maybe be on an easier accessible campus, not pay for parking. Yeah. There's some things like that can really kind of be nice additions that people don't know about.
Yeah. And it just always seemed like it was easier to get classes at certain times.
Yeah. I'm glad that was your experience.
Yeah.
What did you study? I can't remember. You've probably told me this before.
It was just generals there.
Yeah.
And then I got a degree in political science.
Okay.
But it was all like I had to accelerate it and all of that. But it was perfect.
Yeah, I'm glad.
It was perfect. But it's always fun to go to the campus and see. Because I'm sure you guys have thousands, if not tens of thousands of stories, right?
Yes.
But I could imagine stories for most of these people, whether they're true or not, just by looking at them and talking with them.
I love it. That's part of why I love my job, is that as a president, you have to deal with a lot of things that are not fun or that are politically charged or are frustrating or whatever. But I find ways to connect with students and listen to what's happened to them since coming to the college, and the transformation or the sense of self, the confidence levels. It's just, I love it. It's just, it's fabulous.
Yeah. My guess is there's a lot of millionaires that
Yeah.
started at
I hope so.
Salt Lake
And if they
Community
are,
College.
they should be giving back to our capital campaign.
They should. They should.
Yes.
Because, like, yeah, at the end of the day, you'll get a certificate or a degree. But the cool ancillary stuff is improved confidence.
Oh, yeah.
You're more well-rounded.
Mm-hmm.
You could go to a cocktail party and hold your own.
Yep. Yep.
Like all of these things, they might be considered the soft part of it,
Yep.
but it might move the needle more
Oh,
in
totally.
a lot of instances.
And we actually have, I joke about our capital campaign, but we have people that have come back to help with that campaign who have had that very experience. They got launched with us. They've been very successful, and they see what the institution did for them, and they want to make sure that we can continue to do that for other folks because there's gems everywhere
Yeah.
that just need a chance to shine, and sometimes those gems can get really lost in big places. So you're absolutely right. I think we've launched a lot of folks. I always run into people who say, "Oh, I started at Salt Lake Community College." I always say, "Is that on your resume? Do you talk about that?" Because I need people to hear that community colleges are a valid way to start your higher education journey,
Yeah.
right, and your career.
Absolutely. And so we talked a little bit about some blue collar stuff, welding,
Yep.
but there's also like white collar stuff,
Yeah.
computer administration, network. These are like stuff you can do in a year,
Yep.
2
Yeah.
years.
Yeah. So the Herriman Campus is coming out of the ground right now. This is a new model with us in the University of Utah. We've never done this before. It'll open in fall of 2023. And the idea there is that you've got all this development on the southwest quadrant of Salt Lake County, tons and tons of people. The high schools are jam-packed. And we shouldn't ask students to drive who want to go to a university to drive clear across the valley, contribute to air quality, transportation madness, et cetera. So the U and Salt Lake Community College went into business together down there. Anyway, next fall, you can walk in our doors and you could do something like teacher education, or you can do a business, first 2 years of your business degree. We specifically talked to Silicon Slopes and this whole area when we were thinking about those programming to say, what do you need in terms of short-term computer skill programs all the way up to software engineering? Like there's this whole gamut or spectrum of training. And we're going to try to do all of that there so that students can just do something very simple in coding or very specific all the way through an engineering program at the U.
Yeah.
And hopefully that will develop not just with the tech side of the house, but other programs that have both short-term certificates and longer-term bachelor's, master's level training that can really create, I guess, great access for Herriman students.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have not seen the location, but it sounds awesome.
Do you know where Monarch Stadium is?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're just kind of northeast of that, right across the street from that
Perfect.
whole development. And it's a cool building. In fact, I'm touring it on Friday, but it'll be open in fall. And we're going to hopefully have students coming there right out of high school, but also students in Herriman that have got some college no degree.
Yeah.
And this is finally their opportunity close to home to go back and finish their degree.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I can remember a lot of my friends complaining up at the University of Utah. It's like, you wouldn't believe how long it takes me to get home. I live in South Jordan.
Oh, it's
Herriman.
ridiculous.
I'm like, well, I can see it.
I know, but I've done that drive, and it's about a 45-minute to an hour drive.
Yeah.
And with the traffic out there, it's a nightmare.
No.
And when we were pitching that building to the legislature, we talked about, it sounds like an ancillary thing, but it's a big deal. Transportation and infrastructure and air quality, those are big deals that we should be thinking about.
Yeah.
So how do we leverage services and become a little bit more how do we partner better to access higher ed in the state? I hope it's a model other counties, pick up.
Yeah.
It would be helpful.
Yeah. You might as well bookend if you
No
can.
kidding. No kidding. Just stay right there. Yeah.
Okay. So I assume you guys don't teach typewriter repair. You may have at one point, right? But like as the world changes, there's this yin and yang of we need these types of people. Okay. Here they are. Oh, now we need these types of people. And that's part of you and your whole team and the entire institution of like adapting to what the actual market needs.
Yeah.
How does that work in the real world for?
So I think I'm going to try to create clarity here because I think sometimes this is missed. So we just talked about Salt Lake Tech, which are, I don't want to say canned programs, but there's specific curriculum that's been developed that's going to be delivered no matter what, right? In a 6-week or 8-week or 10-week format. But often we have business leaders come to us and say, I have a new technology that we're implementing, and I need these 35 folks to learn how to do it. And so we create the curriculum right then. Like Boeing will walk in and say, hey, we've got this new thing we've got to do. We need a whole line assembly training, and you've got 3 weeks, and we need to build the curriculum, and you need to change this physical space around so we can accommodate the equipment, and we do it. And that's through what's called workforce and economic development. So it's still workforce training, it's still skill-based training, but it's much more flexible and it's more adaptable, and it's really business-centered, right? So it's not curriculum that has been around for 3 years. It's new and emerging curriculum. Yeah. If that curriculum and that technology sticks, it would eventually move into kind of a more structured program that we are always going to create now, right? Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah.
But it may not, because it may be an industry that's constantly moving, and so we don't keep that. We just change that curriculum around for the businesses as they need it.
Yeah.
Our West Point campus does a lot of that. Salt Lake Tech also has offerings at that West Point campus. But so you can really, at Salt Lake Community College, you can do that kind of thing, small, very business-focused, very skill-focused, very flexible training. Still very skill-focused training, but a little bit more structured all the way up to the degree. And I think those different ways you can enter and access us often get lost, and people just think of the regular kind of college 4-year format. It's like, no. There's lots of different ways you can do this.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so the stereotype with universities is they move slow, but what you just mentioned was extremely fast in that example.
Yeah, we community colleges were designed to be more flexible. I get impatient. We can still be very slow in some of our programs, and I'm constantly reminding our faculty and our staff the world is shifting rapidly. And the last 3, 4, probably even longer, maybe decade, the trust of public institutions, the ROI of higher ed, has been really eroding. And we have to listen to that, and we have to be more relevant, and we need to move and change things up and be more adaptive in what we're offering. So while we do it very well in Salt Lake Tech in our workforce, I'm also pushing us to do that a little bit better even in our degree granting programs.
Yeah. And, you guys do a lot of different skills can be learned. But you also have to kind of marry up a marketplace of like SaaS and fintech, and then like composites and like Boeing.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of it requires electricity and networks and those types of things. How do you guys gather your information from?
In terms of what they need?
Yeah.
Most of the programs have what we call program advisory committees. So we have business leaders, we have industry experts right there with us, helping us understand the curriculum and checking in and kind of keeping us honest there. That's gone. Just get rid of that. We're looking at a new fintech program right now. We met with some industry leaders who are saying we're not getting what we need out of certain programs that exist right now in the state. We need a new kind of program, and so our School of Business is trying to adapt to that based on their input. So I think the best way we do that is when we've got really good partnerships with people right on the ground floor that know what's happening, and that we have enough humility to listen and then shift that. The trick for us sometimes is in those areas where faculty or trainers can make way more money in the private sector to get them to come and teach for us in that new technology. That's tricky. Yeah. And sometimes it's hard to do that. I'll be honest there. We're constantly saying, how do we strengthen our adjunct pool to pull people who really know the industry into the classroom? Yeah. Some of our programs do that pretty well. Some of them struggle a little bit to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you've got the skill set to teach a lot of these things and you're just sitting at home watching Netflix at night,
you should
be an adjunct.
Yes, you should come be an adjunct for us, because our students love having folks that have actually been in industry, because they have real stories, they have horror stories. They're not so married to a textbook or theory. They're talking about practice, and they're talking about the real world, and they're not sugarcoating things. Yeah. Not that faculty you know what I'm saying. Yeah. They've got real world experience, and sometimes for students that's just so valuable. So yeah, if you've got listeners that say, "God, I know what I'm doing," and I'm retired or I'm working part-time now or I've, slowed down a little bit, but I still want to do something. Being in the classroom is really cool.
Yeah.
It's fun. Our students are amazing. You would learn from them as you are teaching them.
Yeah.
I can promise them that.
Oh, I'd assume it's wildly rewarding, even if you're just going to do it for 2 years,
Yeah.
3 years.
Yeah. And our faculty, we were talking earlier, just the stories that you hear from our students and the way that your class can change their life or their family's lives or the direction of their family, intergenerational poverty. I mean, it sounds very, idealistic, but it's true. That kind of stuff happens all the time on our campus.
Yeah.
And it is very rewarding to be part of that.
Yeah. We sit in an interesting world where we hear a lot of complaints, right, about I can't find these people, or they're not good enough, or they've missed this. And then sometimes they say, do you know where I can find them?
Uh-huh.
Well, no, there's a lot of people working on that. But why don't you just go be a professor for a semester or two? And my guess is you'll find a bunch.
Yeah, they're right there in front of you.
Maybe I simplify things too much.
No, I think you're right. I think some of it is, I don't know. I think some of it are expectations of the way you hire that haven't evolved, or credentials that we think are necessary that haven't evolved, and giving competencies and work ethic and different knowledge sources credibility in the way you hire. And I think we're shifting a little bit in that area. I mean, I think people are getting savvy about what someone that has a different cultural experience and a different history can bring to the table, and that's opening up doors. But I think there's still room for us as hiring managers to kind of interrogate our own expectations about who's a good worker.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And adapt that a little bit. I talk about that a lot. Do you really need a bachelor's degree to do this job?
Probably
or do you
not.
just need these kind of competencies? And if so, stop asking for the bachelor's degree.
Yeah.
Get rid of it on your job description and talk about what you really need.
Yeah.
That's hard to shift. That's so baked in our society.
Yeah. Like, if I was a hiring manager and somebody applied from Salt Lake Community College, I would make the assumption, whether it's right or wrong, that this person probably was working part-time or even full-time and still
Got through school.
burned the candle at both ends. Check that box.
Yep.
Right?
Grit,
Right out of
tenacity.
the gate.
Yes.
So if somebody's got that, you could probably teach them theoretical physics at some point.
Yeah. I
But if
think
they don't
that's
have
right.
that, you can't teach them anything.
Yeah. Are you going to show up? Have you found a way to manage your life in such a way that you can accomplish a task even if it's hard?
Yeah.
Can you get past whatever they are, societal barriers, in a way that shows that you have that work ethic? That's a lot. If you've got that, you can train a lot of folks in a lot of different ways,
Yeah.
I think.
And then with you guys, like whether, it's a robust economy or just a depression, a small recession, you guys are in a good position either way. Because if it's a robust economy, there's job demand.
Right.
If it's a little bit of a downer economy, people might be looking to amplify their skill set.
Yeah,
right?
upskill, right. We typically, when we have a recession, people come running back to college, right, to get upskilled.
Mm-hmm.
The pandemic recession, kind of the mini financial crisis, I don't know if I wouldn't call it mini for many, but we didn't see that because the pandemic, screwed everything up. So yes, they were financially unstable, but there was a major public health problem, right? And so they didn't want to come to school. So we actually our enrollments have been declining for the last 10 years slowly. We started to just about flatten out and start to come back when the pandemic hit, which is so unfortunate. And I continue to worry that people are so financially unstable that they are not carving out time for higher ed, or they feel like they can't.
Mm-hmm.
So we're trying to be, in some of our programs, as, I guess, assertive and aggressive as we can be about finding ways to help them fit us in, because down the road they're going to need more than a high school diploma. They're just going to. And if we're going to solve intergenerational poverty, or if we're going to solve strong citizenship and voting and health and all of those things, that comes with a post-secondary education of some kind, right? So we got to shift that trajectory. And I guess I worry a little that that we should be doing that more in partnership with business leaders, with community leaders, with political leaders, and with educational leaders. I think that trend makes me nervous.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping everybody listening to this is paying attention to that and going, "Ooh, even if it's selfish, I need a workforce."
Oh, yeah.
That's selfishly, just pay attention to that part of it. You're
Yeah.
not going to have it if they don't come to college. But for me, there's more to it than just a workforce, right? There's a civic duty and an educated citizenry that is really helpful,
Absolutely.
especially right now,
Yeah.
I think.
Because there are a little bit of some war drums pounding on that there might be a recession.
Yes.
There's a good fight between the Bears and the Bulls. But yeah, so if you're, a listener, like the selfish angle is perfectly fine, right? Like if you've got family members, a niece or nephew that are a little bit soft, a little
Yep.
bit lazy over the last couple of years,
Yep.
think everything's just going to keep being hunky-dory, they should have enrolled
Yeah.
today.
Yeah. They need to think about, first of all, the pandemic has, I think we're going to feel the effects of the pandemic, especially with our youth, for a long time, because they all had to go home for 2 years and live in their basement or work with mom and dad on, the nightmares
Yeah.
of that learning environment are problematic. But I do think that it's not as hard as we think it is to go back to college, whether you're 15 and thinking about college or whether you're 38 and coming back. It's not as hard as we think it is. There's financial aid, there's flexibility, there are people and resources to help you do it, there's support. I mean, there's a lot of things happening that folks don't know about. If they would just come to campus and start talking to us, all sorts of things would open up.
Yeah. You guys have, it's never been easier. You guys have done a fantastic job, right? Like 10,000 ways to talk to you.
Yep.
There's campuses all over the place. I've never talked to anyone that has student debt from Salt Lake Community College.
No. About 80% of our students graduate with no student debt.
There you go.
And you would never hear, if you think about the national narrative on CBS Evening News, you're always hearing, whatever, $85,000 of student debt people are walking away from. That's true from private liberal arts colleges and Ivy League.
Yeah.
It's not true from Salt Lake Community College. So affordability is not an issue,
Yeah.
right? You can do this
Yeah.
without taking on a bunch of debt.
Yeah.
And our Salt Lake Promise program, if you are Pell eligible, meaning the feds will give you free grant money, you don't have to pay it back. If they don't pay you the full amount because you're not eligible for the full amount, we will fill that in with scholarship money. So for really low to, I would say, middle to low income families, you can come to Salt Lake Community College for free.
Yeah.
And that, again, that is that's a message that we're having a hard time penetrating with. People still think of college as just out of reach financially.
Yeah. Not the case.
Not the case.
And it really does move the needle. All right. So we've talked about the flexibility. We've talked about the affordability. We've talked about, like, if you've got skill sets and a little bit of extra time, you should be an adjunct.
Yep.
We've talked about, like, marrying up the employer needs with the curriculum and the skill sets learned at the college. New campus.
Yep. Herriman's coming on. One thing we haven't talked about that I'll just do a shout out for, we just about a month ago renamed our School of Business the Gail Miller School of Business. And she's been a longtime advocate for the community college, a great partner with us, our board chair for many years. And in her speech, she talked about wanting to hire students that come through our business school because of the values and the kind of students we attract, right? You just talked about it, grit, tenacity. Oftentimes they're overcoming barriers, so they learn some of those lessons. So I want listeners to know about that too, because it is a more traditional program. Business school has things like marketing or finance or, economics, but all with I guess I would say with a fundamental value system about social responsibility in business and doing good in business, as the Millers have done for many, many years, and many of your listeners have businesses that have that social responsibility. But I think that's a big deal, and I think more business schools should be embedding that. I know they are, but we're joining that too.
Yeah, I love it. And then, like if you went to the community college, put it on your resume, put it on LinkedIn.
Yes.
If you've had some good luck and good fortune, kick some of that back.
SLCC.edu/donate. There it is. There it is.
Yeah, if you want, when you're 85 and in the hospital, if you want people taking care of you, throw some money back.
Next time you go to the dentist, ask your dental hygienist where they got their training. Next time you're in the hospital, heaven forbid, really, seriously, that's when you start, who's working on your car?
Yeah.
there's so many of them. Who's driving the trucks that are bringing you all of those Amazon packages that you're ordering for the holidays, right? I mean, when you start to look at the infrastructure and I would say in many cases the essential workers
Yep.
that we care so much about, oftentimes they probably came through our doors, and hopefully they're being successful as a result of that.
Yeah, I love it. All right, so you mentioned 1948. So back of the envelope math means 75-year anniversary in 2023.
Yeah, it's a big deal. So starting in January 1st, 2023, we're going to spend the entire first 9 months of 2023 celebrating. So it's going to be a long celebration, but September 14th of 2023, we will officially turn 75. And we're going to celebrate our commencement in 23. We're going to celebrate with a big community festival in September. We have all sorts of activities planned to celebrate. And I just think it's really important to know that for 75 years, what started as a place for students to learn to earn when they came back from World War II under the GI Bill, they could come in then and learn technical skills. 75 years later, they can still do that. Yeah. They can still walk in our doors and learn welding or learn, electronics or truck driving or diesel or how to be a nurse or how to be a rad tech. We still are very focused on technical training, but you can also widen your horizons. And if you want to be a PhD in something and go be a researcher, you can do your first few years with us and launch that career very successfully.
Absolutely. So normally I'd say, what are the plans for, the next year? But it's a party.
It's a party, a 75-year party.
That is
I think it's going to be cool. We actually have, I think I'm proud of what we've done. The last 7 years, we've had a strategic plan that's all been focused on 2023. We've had a capital campaign that's all been focused on 2023. So the 75th anniversary gave us kind of a North Star to really hit some metrics and hit some goals and transform our institution. And we've done some serious work over the last 7 years, and we're going to celebrate that work and thank our faculty and staff for really being with us and helping us move the needle.
Absolutely. It'll be fun. And there's not a lot of you guys, right? Like school presidents.
Yeah.
When you're up against it or you've had a rough week, who do you commiserate with?
Well, my husband gets a share of it. But I actually have a group of 3 other women presidents. They're not in this state. They're from out of state. And we probably talk every 2 months on Zoom. We started doing it during the pandemic because things were getting thrown at us in the pandemic that nobody knew what to do with, you know, social justice issues, the pandemic, all sorts of things. Mm-hmm. And those have been really remarkable kind of touchstones for me because they get it, right? They get the kinds of things that presidents are facing. Yeah. And so that's where I go if I have to really vent. Yeah. Yeah.
And obviously a tough job, but what is the funnest part of it?
Oh, I think the students are the funnest part. I could just tell you story after story after story about people, young people, mostly young people, some older people that I've met who some I've engaged with for 10, 20 years. I've known them for a very long time, and I know where they went, and I know what they've become. Others I just met a month ago. I just met a young man, a student a month ago that was just out of this world from Zimbabwe who's had an amazing experience with us in only 6 weeks. So it's for sure the students and what we get to do alongside them and watch their journey. That's the most fun. They're a riot. They keep you young. They keep you. Well, they can't really keep me hip. It's really hard to stay hip when you're as old as I am, but they try.
You sound good. So it's working.
So that's fun. Yeah.
I bet. Yeah, that's the answer I thought you'd give, and that's if I was a school president, that would be the one that I would enjoy the most as well. Well, thank you so much, President Huftalin. It's been great. We'll have you guys for sure, the early part of next year to be a part of the party. And
I'd love it.
Let's keep telling the story, and let's get people supporting Salt Lake Community College.
This is the best. Thank you so much for having us. It's always fun to be here.
You bet. Thank you.
Thanks.